if we zoom out and kind of look at it more surgically and academically, it makes sense that, as you say, they now frame Zionists as monsters because that's the nature of anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
It's the vilification of the Jew. The Jew is always seen as the villain, whether it's in Christian medieval Europe, 19th and 20th century modern Europe, or contemporary world geopolitics today. The way that the world interacts with the Jew, we somehow need to be seen as the villain. But I always say it's not just any villain, it's like the mega villain, this villain who upsets the very things that they care about. So, what does our civilization care most about today? It's human rights. It's why Jews vis-a-vis Israel and Zionism are cast as villains who violate human rights.
Hi everyone, this is another episode of Gold as Girls, and my name is Carla van Welsen, and my co-host for today is Leah, and our special guest is Naya Lekht. And Naya has a very interesting story, so welcome Naya. I'm so happy that you wanted to join us, and we have a lot to cover today, so let's start quickly.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely, it's our pleasure. And
Our pleasure.
yeah.
So, a little bit about Dr. Naya Lekht. She's a scholar on contemporary anti-Semitism and works with the Jewish community to foster pride in the history of the Jewish people. Naya received her PhD in Russian literature from UCLA, where she wrote her dissertation on Holocaust literature in the Soviet Union. In 2018, Naya was a scholar in residence at Oxford University through the Institute for the Study of Global Anti-Semitism, ISGAP. We'll go from there.
Okay, here we are. So welcome again.
Thank you.
And maybe you share a little bit your story, what brings you here?
My story. Well, look, I was born in the former Soviet Union, and I think it's important because while I didn't really grow up there, I came to America when I was a child, about 6 years old. So my formative years, I would say, were in the United States of America. I do always like to mention that because I think that today's Jew hatred and today's ideological climate that allows for this Jew hatred to fester and grow is very much tied to the Soviet Union and my parents and many Soviet Jewish immigrants, their stories of experiencing anti-Zionism, which was the form of Jew hatred that the Soviets had crafted, that they created. And so again, I didn't grow up, encountering anti-Zionism or anti-Semitism at all. When my parents came to the United States of America, we went to Los Angeles and they sent me to a Jewish day school. So I grew up with Jewish peers, going to Jewish day school, growing up in Los Angeles, this pretty big Jewish community. I never really faced any anti-Semitism at all, but I heard of my parents and their stories. And those stories really remained with me till this day. And really, if it wasn't for their stories, I don't think I would understand. I would have the depth of understanding to confront the latest variant of Jew hatred, which is anti-Zionism. And I encountered it for the first time when I was a college student myself. And this was the early years of the 2001, 2002. And I'm going to table that because I just want to go back to my parents for a sec. Because while my parents definitely faced, classical Jew hatred of blood libel accusations in the Soviet Union, what they also faced with was like this huge campaign against Zionists and Zionism. And the thing is, everybody in the Soviet Union, Jew and non-Jew, they understood that meant Jewish. They understood that Zionism was a euphemism, that Zionism was just a way to dress old hatred in new language. And so my parents really shared with me a lot of different stories that I could share them later with you if you're interested. But again, those stories really they formed my understanding of anti-Zionism. And so when I did get onto college campus. I was 18 years old. And like many American Jewish students, I went to campus, bright-eyed, big-eyed, wanting to just study and have a great college experience. What happened to me is what is the story of many American Jewish students is that they're not really able to have like a normal college experience because they're majoring really in combating anti-Semitism. They're not really majoring in history or STEM, physics, etc. So much of their time is going to devote towards fighting this Jew hatred on campus, which is anti-Zionism. So that's kind of my story. And when I was a college student, this was right after 9/11. So 9/11 happened, and I couldn't believe that 9/11 elicited. You would think that amongst my faculty at UC Santa Cruz, that's where I did my undergrad. I was just I just finished my freshman year. I was going into my sophomore year. 9/11 had occurred in September. And I remember when I came onto campus, I was shocked because you would expect that after such a terrorist attack, there would be a lot of empathy, a lot of support for America. But what I found in academia, at least, was that professors that I attended class with turned very much against America and started entertaining these ideas such as America got what it deserved for meddling in foreign policy in the Middle
Yeah.
East, supporting Israel and supporting Zionists. And it was just it gave complete, free reign for this anti-Zionism to come in. And the other thing that I want to say is that when I faced this anti-Semitism, I didn't have my parents. I was living away from home. So I turned to Jewish professionals on campus, Hillel, my Jewish professors. And I shared with them the things that I was experiencing from other professors, from speakers that were being brought on campus. And what shocked me, dismayed me, and today disappointed and really angers me is that instead of supporting Jewish students like myself, we were seen as the problem. They were told us, this is just anti-Zionism. It's political. It's a political disagreement. This is not anti-Semitism. This is criticism of the Israeli government. You are taking this to an extreme. Don't talk about it. You're making it worse. Just keep quiet. There was
Yeah.
right? That to me was so insane because I just, it was completely, we didn't have that word then, but it was like a gaslighting of the Jewish experience of Jewish students like myself and other Jewish kids. And so this was the year 2002. There weren't any of these Jewish or Israel advocacy groups yet on campuses like Stand With Us. It didn't exist. So I and another, interestingly enough, Russian speaking Jewish boy, we formed a student group.
Mm-hmm.
And together, we basically brought speakers that challenged the anti-Zionist narrative, the anti-Zionist lies.
Wow.
And that's what I did on my campus as an undergrad.
Wow.
Wow. These professors were Jewish professors?
Yes.
Oh, great. There was in that time also a lot of conspiracy theories circulating that blamed the Mossad for the attack. And I have read the most crazy things in logic, unimaginable logic, to defend that idea. And then many people, also some Israelis I know, believe that, believe it or not. It's so crazy.
Wild. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Do you
Wow.
think they were just that the Jewish leaders were just scared, or they believed that anti-Zionism at that time wasn't anti-Semitism? Do you think they believed it?
I think they believed it. I think that American Jews, and I love them. Look, I love American Jews. I love all Jews. They're our brothers and sisters. But my biggest criticism of American Jewry is that they were completely unprepared for
Yeah,
anti-Zionism. They did
totally,
not understand it at all.
totally.
Soviet Jews, like my parents, well, only because I had parents from the former Soviet Union did I understand it myself. I think that if I was an American, many generation American Jew who went on campus, I don't think I would see it in the same way.
Sure
But I
not.
think, Leah, to your question, I don't think that they were afraid. Maybe they were afraid, but they definitely, definitely did not believe that this was Jew hatred. They definitely believed that this was political. This is a political disagreement.
Right.
And it was very, it was very, very difficult was that I'm an 18, 19-year-old at that time, standing up against someone who's in their 40s or 50s, who's got all these publications on the history of Jews or the history of the Vichy government and Holocaust scholars telling me that it's not anti-Semitism. And of course, I don't know what it was. There was this inside me, there was something that's telling me that no, they're wrong, I'm right. But I didn't have the vocabulary that I have today to challenge them. I just kind of retreated. I knew inside that they were wrong, but who was I, some 18, 19-year-old student against somebody with, peer-reviewed publications on, let's say, the history of the Holocaust, telling me that I'm misinterpreting anti-Zionism. And it was really frustrating. It was really, really frustrating. And I do lay the blame on American Jewish professionals, legacy organizations, and these professors who to this day in the Jewish studies deny the dangers of anti-Zionism. Anti-Zionism is very dangerous. It is Jew hatred. It's just the latest variant. And
it is so violent because so often it is based on quote unquote the unsafety for the Palestinians, the whole thing, the whole story is so out of context. So it's like we are made monsters by being Zionists.
yes,
And like you, I'm from Europe. I know there are now Israelis not welcome in certain places. Like no Zionists wanted. There is a beautiful arts academy in Amsterdam. They have a doormat in front of the entrance. No Zionists allowed. And there are still Jewish and Israeli students there. They have such a macabre, horrible vision about it. They totally forget and don't know that most of the land is bought, and the land that is obtained in Israeli hand afterwards is because Israel was attacked by 5 different surrounding countries. So if you start a war, you might lose it. So that's how Israel got their land. It's to me so simple. And indigenous people would love to have their land back. And we have an indigenous friend, an American indigenous friend, and she says, the Jews are such a success story for going back to their original homeland. There is no understanding for it. It became a curse on itself. I'm flabbergasted every day what I see on social media. And I notice also quite some American Jews, especially a little bit older, over 40, 50, they're not on social media because they get so nervous, they just don't know it, and then they still have an opinion. They're not aware how terrible it is what circulates on social media and the internet. What do you think about that?
I think that everything you just said is exactly correct. And my only addition to what you are saying is that if we zoom out and kind of look at it more surgically and academically, it makes sense that, as you say, they now frame Zionists as monsters because that's the nature of anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
It's the vilification of the Jew. The Jew is always seen as the villain.
Yeah.
Whether it's in Christian medieval Europe, 19th and 20th century modern Europe, or contemporary world geopolitics today, the way that the world interacts with the Jew, we somehow need to be seen as the villain. But I always say it's not just any villain, it's like the mega villain, this villain who upsets the very things that they care about. So, what does our civilization care most about today? It's human rights.
Yeah.
So that's why Jews vis-a-vis Israel and Zionism are cast as villains who violate human rights.
Yeah.
And when the world cared most about, for instance, Christianity and pushing forth Christianity, our villainry was found in the fact that we were not Christian. And so once you take that step back and you see that anti-Semitism or Jew hatred, whether it's anti-Judaism, anti-Semitism, or anti-Zionism, what it shares is this penchant for casting the Jew as a villain. You understand that anti-Zionism is no different than other forms of this hatred.
Yeah.
And so it makes it very difficult. I've written about this, I've spoken about this elsewhere. It makes it very difficult to combat this hatred because for the anti-Semite, they don't wake up in the morning and think of themselves as filled with hate. They're thinking of themselves as moral people who are trying to uphold a certain world order. And the Jew is just in the way. You see, it becomes this righteous moral cause.
Yeah.
So it makes it very difficult to fight because they believe that they are fixing the world by saying no Zionists allowed. So they're purging space of the villain. For them, they're purging the space of the villain, making the space, they're cleansing the space of the dirty Jew, the dirty Zionist, whatever. But it's no different than any other classical form of Jew hatred. And I think it's incumbent on us to know that. I didn't know that when I was 18 to tell that to my professors, but to be able to have that vocabulary, to be able to understand that we're dealing with nothing, no different. My mother always tells me, she told me years ago, today's Heil Hitler is free Palestine. It's the same echo. And so
Yeah.
our job is we have many things that we have to do, but I think we need to educate ourselves and educate our fellow Jewish community to be able to talk and understand the nature of this complex phenomenon, which is Jew hatred.
Yeah. So what did you do when you were in college? You first started like this, what you described. What happened to you? Because I understand that you became an advocate and you became very a big speaker for protecting and explaining the Jewish world and the motivation and the Zionism, etc. So how did that go with you? How did you get there?
So I it was tough because Jewish students at that time they not every Jewish student, but a few of us understood that what was happening was terrible. And I'll share a story, okay? So my sophomore year of college, the Department of Comparative Literature, History, Sociology, and I believe Anthropology co-sponsored an event with a speaker who was an imam, and he came to speak about Palestine. And we all went. And I remember that the entire talk was about accusing Jews vis-a-vis, again, using the word Zionist, of stealing land, of colonization, of racism, et cetera, et cetera. But it was at the very end of that talk it was very chilling, and to this day really haunts me. So he ended the talk by saying, "Whoever's Jewish in the room, can you please stand up?" And
Ah,
we stood up. And that what bothers me reflecting back is that we complied.
yeah.
I don't know why we complied. I don't know why I complied, but I stood up. And we all stood up, the Jewish kids in the room, and he proceeded to point at us and said, you. We are going to get our land back with our blood. Meaning it doesn't matter if we have to spill our Arab, Muslim, whatever, Palestine, whatever he wanted to, blood, we're going to get our land back from you usurpers. And I remember I was like, oh my, this is insane. In the United States of America, my parents left this
Yeah.
lunacy, this
Yeah.
evil, right? My parents brought me here. And what am I facing? I'm facing very similar things to what my parents faced. And I remember the moment that happened, the next day, I remember my hands were shaking. I decided to go to the office of, so at that time, they didn't have yet DEI people or all that stuff. They had a compliance officer within the Office of Registration about to file complaints about harassment. And I decided to file a harassment complaint. And I remember the young guy who was working there said to me, "Are you sure you want to fill this out? Because it kind of sounds like maybe he just made you uncomfortable because of a political statement." Like everything was, they were trying to tell me, you're taking this, like you're making this about your identity when really this is a political conversation. They made me doubt my own sense of reality. Gaslighting, I guess, is what you would call that today.
Yeah.
And I remember the biggest problem that afflicted the Jewish community then and now is that Jewish people don't understand that Zionism is about our identity and not a political conversation. And my work henceforth has been to try to remind the Jewish people that Zionism while yes, the word was coined in the late 1892, yes, Zionism in the late 19th century was a political movement, but the idea of Zion, the idea of Zion, is ancient. It's part of who we are as Jews, and
Thousands of years old, yeah.
thousands of years old. And so we've allowed our detractors to dictate the narrative, to dictate how this is going to go by saying Zionism is political. And American Jews bought into that as well. They're like, yeah, it is political, but it isn't political. It's really about my identity, right? If you tell me no Zionist is allowed in this space, I see that as no different as saying to another minority group, if you have this color hair or this type of nose, you are not allowed in this space. It's no different because Zionism is core to what it means to be a Jew.
Yeah.
Now we can all disagree about the government, how it should look, but we cannot disagree that Israel is central to Jewish identity.
Oh,
It's not.
We just
no.
it's not in disagreement. And so that's where I think has been the biggest, I think, problem facing American Jews. And so your question, as I became an advocate, my biggest obstacle has been with the American Jewish community, not with the anti-Semites. Those are simple. I get them. I understand them. My issue is with our own fellow American Jews who didn't want to believe for a long, long time. And I think it sadly had to take October 7th. And even now you still have American Jews who don't think that anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
That has been my biggest struggle and pain point, is the fact that it's taken our community 25, if not more years. And I don't even know if we're still in unison understanding the dangers of anti-Zionism. That's been my biggest frustration, big frustration.
I hear you. I hear you. When you were talking about Jewish identity, it slipped in my head that there is a therapy book used in several schools of therapy, and that says Jewish identity is a mental illness.
Where did you read that?
Sorry?
Where did you read that?
Yeah, there's a therapy book. There's a therapy book. Somebody wrote it and is one interviewed about it. And that's the conclusion. That's in it. It is a mental illness to have a Jewish identity. You can have a Muslim identity, Arab identity, but a Jewish identity is a mental illness.
It's like this element of shame and degradation. That's what I hear.
It is even like how Farrakhan could say that we Farrakhan Jews are lies and ends. We need to what is it? Expel, extort. What is the word? Exterminate them. It is a mental extermination to say Jewish identity is mental illness. I had a whole week of things like this. It's like, where's the world today? What is going on? Yeah. If you start today.
I have a question. How did Russia come up with this idea? Because I really don't understand it. Like, there's different strains, but why did Russia come up with this for Jews? I know there were the kulaks and the landowners, but how did this virulent strain start in Russia, and why? I don't understand that piece.
Some history, yeah, please.
Yeah, I don't.
Okay, well, how long do we have? No, I'm going to try to do it
in a nutshell.
In a nutshell. All right.
I know that mentioned Arafat went there too. I mean, they're teaching Arafat, which is how this all came.
Yeah.
Century-old anti-Semitism, yeah.
But why Russia, and why the Jews in Russia?
Well, we could also ask, first of all, the Protocols of the Elders of Zion was also blessed by Russia. So
that's what I'm saying. Like, how did that start in Russia?
Are you asking about anti-Zionism or Protocols of the Elders of Zion? Which one are you asking?
It's the same. It's just is it not?
Yes,
I mean, maybe you know.
No, it's not really the same, although there are echoes of it. But let me answer about anti-Zionism, because I think it's a little bit more interesting and a little bit more difficult to understand. So I'm going to try to synthesize it. So after World War II, after the Holocaust, the world emerges with this story of the attempted genocide of Jews. 6 million Jews are murdered. And if you look at around at the globe and are studying levels of anti-Semitism, pretty much after the Holocaust, levels of anti-Semitism are going down, except in one place, and that's the Soviet Union. They're going up, which is weird because how do you explain levels of anti-Semitism going up after such an atrocity? Now, we actually can explain it right now very well. Think of October 7th. You would think after October 7th, surely the world finally will understand. But no, anti-Semitism is spiking after October 7th.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's maybe for a psychologist, psychiatrist to explain that phenomenon to me is how do you turn against the victim after the victim has been so brutalized? That's maybe a Freudian analysis there, but let's just stick with history for a sec. At the time in the Soviet Union, the leader, the dictator is Joseph Stalin. Joseph Stalin was very paranoid. He's difficult to understand. And after the Second World War, Soviet Union emerges very scathed. So Soviets lost about 10 to 15 million of their soldiers, right? The Soviets fought, they were really instrumental to winning the Second World War. But what was happening in the Soviet Union was there was a burgeoning Jewish nationalism. Joseph Stalin supported in the UN vote for Israel. The Soviet Union voted yes, okay? And the reason that the Soviet Union voted yes is because the early Halutzim, the pioneers, were socialists. They were secular Jews. They were mostly from Eastern Europe, Russian speakers, who loved Joseph Stalin. And if you look at early pictures of these kibbutzniks and the kibbutzim, they had posters of Stalin in their kibbutzes.
Seen it.
They loved. And so Stalin thought, oh my God, this is amazing. This will be a communist outpost in the Middle East.
Yeah.
Because both Lenin and Stalin were always interested in bringing communism abroad, outside of the borders of the Soviet Union. It was the international. They wanted to export communism into the world. So when they voted yes for Israel, we shouldn't think that it's because they loved Jews so much. It was strategic thinking on the part of Joseph Stalin that, we are going to have this amazing influence in the Middle East. We're going to spread communism into the Middle East. And that'll, we'll reach our utopia of communist international. But it kind of backfired on that plan because what happened was that the Jewish people in the Soviet Union were kind of like, wow, the Jewish homeland has been revitalized, has been reestablished. And what awakened within the Jewish people in the Soviet Union was a sense of deep pride and nationalism. And Joseph Stalin thought to himself, I can't have that. I can't have a people within my country who are loyal to another country, who are nationalistic, because Marxism is all about transcending your tribal identity. You are now you are universalist, you are
globalist,
globalist, exactly. So when he saw that the Jewish people all of a sudden are turning towards Zion in the Soviet Union with admiration, with pride, and there's a growing sense of nationalism, Joseph Stalin realized, I have a problem on my hands. And he called the Jews a fifth column, which means an eternal kind of enemy, a Trojan horse that's going to basically instill unrest from within. And so what ended up happening also is that Israel did not behave in the way that Joseph Stalin thought that it would, meaning it wasn't just going to be a little outpost of the Soviet Union. They decided it's a Jewish land. We're going to do how we want. And Israel in the 1950s decided not to be the little dog or the little lapdog of the Soviets. And Stalin unleashed a terrible anti-Semitic campaign in the late 1940s, and he died in 52 or 53. So he unleashed a terrible, terrible anti-Jewish campaign. But he understood that it would be very difficult to sell anti-Semitism after 6 million Jews just perished. So we're not going to do anti-Semitism. We're going to talk about Zionism is the problem. You got to sell. The Jew hater understands very well how to sell a repackaged form of Jew hatred. And so so again, growing paranoia around the fact that the Jewish people inside Soviet Union are nationalistic and maybe loyal to another country, coupled with a desire to rebrand anti-Semitism, but knowing that you can't do classical anti-Semitism right after the Holocaust, the birth of anti-Zionism came, and Stalin and the Soviets in the late 40s, early 50s, there was a call to publish articles, publish newspaper pieces denouncing Zionism as a colonial, Zionism as fascism, Zionism as racism. They started to craft that type of language. And that's why it was born in the Soviet Union, anti-Zionism. It was basically a really smart marketing campaign to take an old hatred and package it in language that would resonate for a people right after the Second World War.
Is it
I
the
want to
same
just
time?
say,
Oh, sorry, go. Yeah, go.
No, just about this dual loyalty point. I think that's worth just highlighting for a second, because I mean, they didn't say they were going to impose their own law within Russia, right? They just had their heart somewhere that they loved, but they weren't going against the status quo in Russia, were they? I mean,
No,
they weren't.
but you can, I'm not trying to justify Stalin, but I can understand.
Yeah,
If you
well, if
have
you're
an
paranoid,
ideology of Marxism where people are supposed to transcend their national identity and come
right,
together under the aegis of a Soviet
right,
utopia, that you can't have Ukrainian nationalism, Uzbeki nationalism. You can't have Jewish. You couldn't have that. And Jewish people it's true. They were growing. They thought of themselves as Jews in the Soviet Union. You know, when Golda Meir came to Moscow in 1948. She came to visit and there was a huge synagogue, a very historic synagogue in Moscow. And Stalin couldn't believe his eyes because he allowed her to come, but he could not predict how many Jews came. They came,
Yeah,
and there are pictures. Look at their eyes. They're looking
see
at
it.
her like
Yeah,
a hero, a national hero. Now look at it from Stalin's perspective. A foreign dignitary is coming to your country, and your own people are greeting this dignitary as their own hero.
yeah, yeah,
That is threatening.
yeah.
you have
Especially
that
when you're
in the
so
United
in
States, though.
power. If you're so, is that the same time that there were like so many Jewish doctors accused of conspiracy and murdered? Was it the early 50s, late
It was
40s?
the early 50s, 1940, 51. He
Yeah.
unleashed something known as the Doctor's Plot.
Yes. Horrific. Yeah.
I didn't know
Wow.
about
Wow. 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 It's a huge history. But before, is it like the Protocol of the Elders of Zion? Is that written like in 1904 or 1903 or something?
Oh, three, yes.
Wow.
So that is before the Soviet Union. That is
Yeah.
during the reign of Nicholas II.
Yeah.
And that is also, look, it was a forged document.
Yeah.
It was commissioned by the Tsar, by the Russian Tsar. And I've actually I've read not all of it. I've read parts of the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. And it reads like a secret meeting, like as if you were able to get the agenda notes of a secret meeting. And this was a secret meeting of Jews of how they're planning to take over the world. And it sounds ludicrous to us, but it was so well written. And it immediately was translated into like 15 European languages. But it was also pretty much immediately debunked as a forged document. Nevertheless, it didn't matter. The damage was done. Just like with the New York Times piece,
Yes.
now they're going back. It doesn't matter. The damage is
Right.
so done.
Yeah.
So, look, why Russia? You ask a very quick, why is it that in Russia you have these huge anti-Jewish documents, one anti-Jewish document, and this whole campaign anti that? Why Russia? I think that I think that anti-Semitism thrives when there's economic and social instability. And I think that like
Mhm.
the 1903, the 1903 was the year right before the Russo-Japanese War of 1905, and the Russian Empire was really falling apart. Tsar Nicholas II knew this. When things are fragile and things are collapsing, you definitely look for someone to blame. And so
Scapegoat
you
was working very well already for
yes.
generations. Yeah.
And so you've got a sizable Jewish minority within your empire, that's the Jews. And there's already pogroms, there's a history of pogroms, there's already an innate kind of anti-Jewish sentiment within the population, within the peasantry, the muzhik,
Yeah.
the regular Russian folk. It makes sense that it would happen in Russia because things were very, very unstable. There was already 1905 was the first um, revolution, that was the October Revolution, which was failed. And then there's the 1917 Bolshevik Revolution. But my point in mentioning those two is to underscore that the Russian Empire was falling apart.
Yeah.
And knowing that it is falling apart, you need to craft a conspiracy theory to put the attention away from you and onto the Jews.
How is that related to Ukraine? Because what I know, of course, it fell apart in different states now, but what I know about Ukraine is that there were like 700 pogroms in total, more or less, in the style of the butcher style of October 7th, right? And then I think 1921 was the last one for Jews, and like 100,000 Jews were slaughtered. You barely hear about it. How does that relate? What was the position of Ukraine related to Russia, because it was also part of the USSR? Was it considered before that like Russia, or Ukraine? But how is that?
Well, let me again, a little history lesson.
Yeah. Great. We can
You're the
learn.
one to do it.
Catherine the Great was born in Germany or Prussia and came and became the Empress of the Russian Empire in the 1700s. And she was very good in terms of power and strength and expanding the Russian Empire. When she became the Empress of the Russian Empire, she gained a lot of territory, which is now modern day Ukraine, Belarus, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland. But those countries didn't exist as sovereign countries. Like there was the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, for instance. There was no Belarusia there. There really wasn't a Ukraine at that time as a sovereign country. So at the time, in the late 18th century, the latter half of the 1700s, when Catherine the Great had ruled over the Russian Empire, was the empress, she decided that that land, which was kind of the backland, the wasteland of the empire, which is, as I say, modern day Ukraine, Belarus, Poland, Lithuania, that land was called the Pale of Settlements. And what that was, I try to explain it for students. Think about it as a huge ghetto where only Jews are allowed to live. So in that land, Jews were allowed to live. They were allowed to do their business. They were allowed to have their schools. They were even allowed to have roles in local government, by the way. They were allowed to have some autonomy. What they were not allowed, the Jews, is to go into the Russia proper. So they couldn't go to St. Petersburg. They couldn't go to Moscow. Now, of course, certain Jews did, but by and large, you had to have special papers, special permission from the emperors. And so that part of the world, that part of, Russian Empire, the Pale of Settlements, is where pogroms happened. That's just where modern day Ukraine sits, Poland, Lithuania, Belarus, Moldova. That is where the pogroms were happening. And the pogroms basically, but they were even in the 1600s with Khmelnytsky. Khmelnytsky lived in Ukraine, but again, every single time we say Ukraine, we have to be a little bit careful because the country Ukraine didn't really exist as a sovereign country in the 1700s or the 1600s. So just that region is really where the Jews settled. And then the Jews were forced to live there in the Pale of Settlements. And that is where the pogroms usually happened.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I feel so for those people. They were so unprotected. They could not go here, they could not go there, and there was so much murder around. It's just horrific, the whole history. Yeah.
It's like a ghetto,
It is like
right?
a, but the
It's
thing of the
just
matter is that despite these conditions, Jewish people really thrived. And I think that partly is obviously one explanation for anti-Semitism and one explanation for the protocols of the Elders of Zion, because
mm,
how do you explain there must be some conspiracy? And now I'm speaking like a pseudo anti-Semite, right? How do you explain a people who are forced to live in a ghetto, who are not allowed to do X, Y, and Z? How is it that they're doing so well? How is it that they're educated? How is it that they are doing well with money? There must be something going on. And so that's why these conspiracies about Jews, in addition to the social unrest that gives fertile ground for these conspiracies, but from the perspective of the anti-Semites, they trying to explain how is it that this people that's so downtrodden, such a victim, how is it they're doing so well? And they did do well, the Jews.
But also were very poor. They were also very poor ones,
Yes, they were very
specifically
poor,
in
but
Poland.
they were poor, but for instance, there were Jews who were very, very wealthy because Jews were allowed to sell alcohol, whereas the Russians, because of the Orthodox
Oh my
Church,
God, the
they were not
vodka.
allowed. Yeah, they
Yeah.
were allowed to sell alcohol, and they had a lot of dispensaries and they had a lot of bars, if you will, in towns. And of course, what did they then became? What was the accusation? That the Jews inebriated, that they caused the Russians to become alcoholics.
Yeah.
So, for instance, Dostoevsky, the great Russian writer, who's also a huge anti-Semite, one of the things that he accused the Jews of is that of intentionally making the non-Jews, the Russians, so inebriated, so drunk, so that they could succeed, but the Russians couldn't succeed because they were just too busy getting drunk.
Yeah.
So it's like heads you win, tails you lose. We can't sell alcohol, so we're going to let Jews sell it. Okay, Jews sell it, they do well. Now we're going to accuse the Jews of the fact of the matter is that we have an alcoholism problem in Russia. It's the
Oh,
same thing, by the way, with the
money lending.
money lenders. Well, we can't have interest because Christianity prohibits taking interest from fellow Christians. So we're going to put Jews in that position. Well, Jews are in that position. They become wealthy. Oh, they're using their wealth in unethical ways, et cetera, et cetera.
You know, in
yeah.
Italy, in Venice, I know there was some money lenders there, and obviously, and what I learned when I went there was that there were so many rules imposed on their money lending. They had to give away a lot of it to the powers that be. It wasn't just instant wealth at all. So I just had to say that
Yeah.
Right.
because the more they got, the more they had to give away. I mean, it's like anything.
I
It
know. I
wasn't,
just
yeah.
maybe this is an overreach, but I think Jews don't do well in the diaspora. I think we need to have our own homeland and we need to live in our homeland. I don't think we're meant to live outside of our homeland. I mean, we can by choice, is what we do now. Now it's a choice. But I think we definitely don't do well outside of our homeland.
Yeah, I love you for saying that.
Wow.
Really, I agree with you. So now there is, of course, so much history.
Yes.
What are you doing? You said students. Are you teaching in college? And how do you look at the future? What do you feel about the future? I would love tomorrow to move to Israel because I so agree with you. But how do you see the future, like in America and Europe, with all this poisoned crap going on?
Mm-hmm.
Do you
Well,
have hope? Sorry to interrupt you, but do you have hope in one
I
way or
have,
another?
yeah, because of my Russian background, there's very little hope. Everything is doom and gloom. Russian people tend to be more depressive. I don't know if I'll give you so much hope, but maybe I will. I'll just say a few things. One is, I used to teach in university. I used to. I used to teach there, but I left the university for many reasons. One of which was it was very difficult to be a Jew who is also a Zionist, which is synonymous. So anyway, it was difficult for me. And the truth of the matter is, ladies, is that again, who did I receive the most trouble from? It was fellow faculty from Jewish studies.
Yeah, that is a psychological issue. You know, it is, we have the self-hating Jew, huh, as a type. We did one of our first videos and conversations about it.
Our first video was
Yeah,
on
we
that
had
exact topic.
so many comments, and that was, of course, from the
Hmm.
haters. And I noticed in other, I'm psychologist, I noticed in other phenomena that it's not only self-hating or not even self-hating, it's like so identifying with the other side that you look at the Jews like you're not even part of them. Like what is reversed loyalty syndrome. You become loyal in with the enemy in a way, and that's what I see so much, and it's so shocking and difficult,
Yeah.
and it's hard. I love
Yeah.
your earrings, by the way. It's
Yes,
phenomenal.
they're
I
Oh
didn't
yeah.
see them in the
Oh, I just
beginning.
noticed that.
I have them too. I have certain, not the same. I should wear them too.
I
I
love that.
have
yeah.
them like 30, 40 years and I still have them. So that's
I
on the
think of
side
Chuck
note.
Schumer when you say that, I think of Chuck Schumer, Shomer to protect, and he's the first one to throw Israel under the bus. I feel like, or Bernie Sanders, or Ben and Jerry's. I mean, the list is endless. Noam Chomsky, Gabamonte. I mean, you could just go on and on and on and on.
Yeah.
It's like, look how bad they are. In other words, I'm good.
Yeah.
It's virtue signaling
I'm the
just for
good you. I'm the
yourself,
good you.
knowing that
Please,
other
I'm the
people
good
are
you.
going to suffer,
Yeah.
knowing they will
It's
suffer.
sick,
It's
sick,
just
sick.
so evil. So why did
It
they
is,
do it?
yeah. What to do? We don't know.
No, why? I mean, how do you that you're right. They don't feel part of it. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I don't think I have like the answer here. I think that I've been thinking about it for many years. Why did I face the biggest alienation from fellow Jewish faculty? Why did they push me out? Um, and I think that there are many answers, but I do think that they are very uncomfortable with Jewish particularism.
Hmm.
Think that they would rather be globalists, universalists.
Belong to the crowd, not to stand out. Yeah. Tired of
Yes.
standing out, probably too. Oh, the scapegoat thing that was very alive when I grew up in Europe. The scapegoat idea. Jews are punished or have these all issues because of the scapegoat. And I didn't hear about that so much in the last 20, 30 years. But it's still deep there. And we feel it. We want to belong and liked and loved like everybody else. And it is hard to be, as a young person in college. I can imagine if you're 18, 19, and you're the only Jew or a few, and the looks at you, the comments at you. I have experienced it a little bit in the Netherlands, actually every year something. And because I don't know, look Jewish, so you hear more, right? It was a bit more hard. I find it very difficult. I think we can talk about this for hours and we would maybe continue another time. We are a bit at the end of where we are for this
Sure.
moment.
So much
And
to
we go
talk.
to, huh? Yeah,
There's so much. It's a huge topic.
it is. And you know, I find it wonderful what you shared today, although it was terrible. But it is, I'm with you here, Naya. I feel really the same. That's why I ask you for hope. I don't have much hope either. And we need to create hope because without hope, we cannot live. One of the Holocaust survivors in Holland wrote a book about that. And it's true, we need to create a picture. And I found for myself some hope in doing this. And like Leah, right? Meeting great people and doing our best to spread some other stories. So now we are at the end, and we have the habit that we have a scumbag or an anti-Semite, a Jew hater, or a group even, that we share, and then we go to the heroes. So if you will start, Leah.
Okay, scumbags. I've got two countries. I have France to recognize Palestinian state and Malta to recognize Palestine at the UN in September. That is, I mean, I always say if you want to recognize it, do it in your own country. I'm
Yeah, go
fine with
ahead.
that. Do it in your own country.
And I'm
So that is
wondering,
such a scumbaggy thing to do because it's
yeah,
not on their necks. It's not, it's condemning Israel for something that's they don't feel any
And
suffering for.
rewarding terror.
Rewarding
yes,
terror. Thank you. I
yes,
couldn't have said it better.
it's
Yeah,
mind blowing,
it
mind
is
blowing.
mind blowing.
And they
Yeah.
think they do good. They think they're goody goodies that they stand up for the poor Palestinians. Where and who will lead the state? That's another nice question. But okay.
Yeah.
Naya, please.
Who is my scumbag? Well, I think I I was thinking about it. I'm gonna go with faculty from Jewish studies, and in particular, Omer Bartov,
I
who
know it.
recently wrote a terribly wrong, misguided piece for the New York Times saying that I know what genocide is, I've studied it, and what's happening in Gaza is a genocide. And I think Omer Bartov is the perfect example of when theory and not history influence your thinking. I don't think he's thinking historically, legally. He's not using legal frameworks. He's thinking theoretically. He's thinking as a Marxist and as a Jew who does boils from particularism, who has a deep problem with the Jewish state. And so he is my scumbag of the moment.
Yeah. I have read that article and I don't read the New York Times, but I have read it anyway. And it's deeply shocking. It's depressing how far our fellow Jews can go. It's bizarre. It's really bizarre.
Put him in the camp with Noam Chomsky and Gabor Mate and Ben Jerry's, just
Here,
all of
Beinart.
them. Who?
I am part of academia that you get articles, and because of they see my interest, so I get all the time this problem, this problematic of Zionist related, Judaism related, Israel related articles. So many times I say Hebrew names, and it's like, can't you write about something else, then deepen this out or that out? Why to focus on the negative so badly? And it doesn't help anybody. It's only creating more hate.
They think
And
it
it's
helps
not
them.
even debunked. It is shared like that.
Yes,
They
Okay, I have
think
also a
it's
great one, and it has been all over the internet. Very shocking. I didn't know him before. I was really, I got nauseous from his devilish laughter when he brought up the book of Mein Kampf in a group of a few girls and two other people like him. And it's called Fit and Fresh, or Fresh and Fit. I always compare things. And his name originally is Amru Fudal. And somebody like with the name Apostate Prophet made a lot of fun about him. He's an ex-Muslim, so he got a lot of attention. He was laughing so gleefully about the idea that what some of his fellow speakers said, that the Jews, it's time that we take responsibility for our part of the Holocaust, because why would Germany do that? Kill a large group of people? There must be a very good reason, and we don't want to look at that reason. And it was totally celebrating Hitler's idea. And then some other people said, well, what shall we do now? And then it was said, one of the other girls kill the MFers, that means us, and they had so much fun. And it is so extremely disgusting. You can see this video on multiple places on Instagram, also on our Jewish forum. I put it there. His official name is Myron.
Nothing. We came to this country with $50. Sorry, I don't know what happened there. Yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm glad it's not some outside external
I hope it's
whatever.
not him. I'm glad it's not him. So
I don't know.
his new name, and he calls himself Myron Gaines, and he seems to be a huge influencer.
Yes, I've seen this.
Yeah, I'm sure you saw and know about it. I am not sure he's on Hubstack or wherever he is. I forgot that. It's probably there. And he has always a lot of people there. And the joy in his laughter sticks with me. It was like really the devil was laughing. Because the joy, because he is a super denier of the Holocaust. He has a lot of things. He reads Mein Kampf and he says, I got so inspired by this book, and this is what we need to read all. Now, I'm a firm believer, this brings a bit to my own problems. I'm a firm believer of free speech, but I also know that people, when they get the really wrong messages and take them for truth, we know what that leads to. And that happens so much with the propaganda in Germany, even in the Netherlands. After 1945, there was more anti-Semitism than before 1940. So what the propaganda did in those 5 years, only with those newspapers, only with that, already became more anti-Semitic. Imagine what happens today. The propaganda is much, 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 much larger. So yeah, I find this very, very, very shocking, this guy. Okay, Leah, please bring your hero in. We need to light it up.
Okay. I'm going to go with another country. It's Costa Rica. who has become the sixth country in Latin America to adopt the IHRA Jew hatred definition. And they're a peaceful country. I don't think they even have an army. Very
Don't say that
colorful
out loud.
country.
That's scary for they might come.
Yeah, no. They're just a peace-loving country and they're willing to put the truth out there. So,
Wow, fantastic. Yeah,
yeah,
thank you.
go Costa Rica.
Naya.
And for my hero, it's not a person, but it's all the Jewish parents out there in the United States of America who have children who are facing this anti-Semitism and who are doing so much, trying so much to fight back. I just want to give them a shout out and I want to celebrate them because I'm in a lot of different WhatsApp groups. I work with different parent groups, and I'm telling you, they are really mobilizing and they're doing so much. So I want to give them huge, you know, just a huge shout out for all their efforts. And it's not it's not the person. It's not, you can't put one face to this person. It's just Jewish parents who are doing so much to fight with the anti-Semitism.
Against, I mean,
That's wonderful. That's so
yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah, this is the good side of what happened, unfortunately. That there are also greatness, that also greatness is coming out from this, an awakening for some people, and getting us more together, and becoming aware of our wonderful history too, and the roots that are with us, and the historical knowledge and all that. And yeah, it's wonderful. Okay, I have a little different one, and her name is Katarina Perez, I think. She was, no, she still is, a Jewish French girl that married an Iranian man, became Muslim, and lived in Iran for X amount of years. And
Read about her.
yeah, and she did wonderful work, and at a certain moment, she divorced her husband, took her kids, left, and then she told, "Well, I'm actually Jewish," and she had a lot of information for the Mossad. It's like Eli Cohen, like that have in Iraq, right? It's like
Yeah, I
amazing
read
those
about
people.
her.
Yeah, fantastic. I'm not sure when she came out, it maybe a month ago or whatever. And wow, what a heroine! I would not have dared that because you have to be. She was even interviewing Khomeini or Khamenei, one of the two. Amazing, amazing. Yeah, that's another
Mhm.
story today. Well, thank you so very much, ladies. It was wonderful meeting you,
Thank you so much
Naya,
for
and
having me.
there's so much
Dr.
more to
Lecht,
learn from you. And I wish you all the best with what you're doing. And maybe we see each other in
definitely.
Israel one day. Who says? Take care.
Bezrat
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
very much.
Thank you.
We have a small request, and you probably know what it is about. But we have this very interesting situation that 91% of our returning viewers do not subscribe, but they are returning, so they must like it. And that would be great if that is you, if you will be so kind to subscribe, eventually leave a like if you like the video, or even leave a comment, that's even nicer, or have a request. That would be great to hear from you. But please support our work by subscribing. Thank you so very much. That would be such a favor to us.